Beginning this morning, under a deal reached by extensive U.S. diplomacy, including numerous calls I've made from the Oval Office to leaders across the region, fighting in Gaza will halt for 4 days. This deal also is structured to allow a pause to continue for more than 50 hostages to be released. That's our goal. This morning, I've been engaged with my team as we began the first difficult days of implementing this deal. It's only a start, but so far it's gone well. Earlier this morning, 13 Israeli hostages were released, including an elderly woman, a grandmother, and mothers with their young children, some under the age of 6 years old. Separately, several Thai nationals and Filipino nationals were also kidnapped by Hamas on the 7th. They were released as well. All of these hostages have been through a terrible ordeal, and this is the beginning of a long journey of healing for them. The teddy bears waiting to greet those children at the hospital are a stark reminder of the trauma these children have been through, and at such a very young age. Jill and I, Jill's with me here, keeping them all in our prayers today.
What's up, a Cinema Shogun here, and we actually have some good news coming out of Gaza and Israel. Both Israel and Hamas have agreed to a 4-day ceasefire, so both sides can release hostages and prisoners. Israel and Hamas, they made a deal, and Israel is going to release 150 Palestinian prisoners, and Hamas is going to release 50 hostages that they took on October 7th. Now, Hamas has plenty more hostages, and I'm sure there's more Palestinian prisoners. But I'm seeing a lot of people call this a hostage exchange. And that's not what this is at all, folks. You see, on October the 7th, when Hamas attacked Israel, they kidnapped a bunch of old ladies, little girls, dudes as well, but mainly old women and little girls, okay? So those are hostages that they have been holding against their will. They snatched them up for no reason, right? And they wanted to use them as leverage against Israel in this fight. Now, the people Israel is releasing, a lot of them have charges like attempted murder, you name it. These are not hostages. These are prisoners who were in jail for committing crimes. Now, sure, maybe some of them shouldn't be in jail. You know, I mean, there's conversations to be had there. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I know the full details and the full criminal history of everyone that Israel is releasing, but I have looked into a few of them, and a lot of them have been convicted of crimes such as, you know, assault or attempted murder and things along those lines. Now, obviously, when looking at this deal, you see that it's a little lopsided. Israel is releasing 150 prisoners in exchange for 50 hostages. You would think that there would be, you know, the number would be a little closer. Now, today alone, these releases are going to happen over a 4-day period. Today alone, Israel has already released 39 Palestinian prisoners, and Hamas released 25 hostages. Now, here's the funny part. Well, it's not funny, but follow me here. The USA has been instrumental in making this deal go through. If it wasn't for the USA, I don't think this deal would have gone through. The USA seems like they're trying to reel Israel in just a little bit. Don't get me wrong, I think they're ready for war and they probably want war. But because of PR, because of how things have looked over the past few weeks, because of all of the people speaking out against this war, I think that the U.S. has been trying to reel Israel in. Now, the U.S., like I said, they played a big part in making this deal happen, but guess what? Not a single one of the hostages released was an American. So they released like 13 I believe they released 13 Israelis and like 12 people who were from Thailand or something like that. They have not released their American hostages. Now, does Hamas view American hostages as being worth more than these other hostages? Probably, maybe. But my thing is, if you're at the negotiating table and you play a big part in this exchange, I would think that you would be arguing to get your people, like, don't get me wrong, we want all of the hostages freed, but Americans should be America's priority. But looking at who was released today, that doesn't seem like that's the case. And that's not really that surprising to me. But I want to go ahead and show you a couple of video clips, and then I'll be right back with more thoughts.
You can see the images now of the IDF, where there were some minor clashes earlier between the Palestinians who'd gathered there and the IDF. The Palestinians were waiting for those 39 women and children to be released. They have now been released. And you are looking at images of the West Bank, where many have gathered, waiting for those 39 women and children to arrive in those two buses. They were escorted there. We understand 39 women and children. In total, 150 Palestinian women and children will be released from Israeli prisons in exchange for a total of 50 hostages held by Hamas in Gaza. So lots of developments, lots of things taking place today. In many ways, you would say that today was a success, a glimmer of hope after 7 tragic weeks following October the 7th. And then, of course, the tragedy of October the 7th, the pain that Israel felt, and then the tragedy that the Gazans have felt over the course of the last 7 weeks following the Israeli bombardment and ground offensive. You can see, though, there that many people carrying Palestinian flags, waiting for those 39 women and children to arrive following their release from Israeli prisons. Let's show you images coming in from the Rafah crossing now as well, because as night falls, it's now about 8 o'clock in the evening. There are many ambulances that are still gathered there and waiting after a long day of operations. They've received these 24 hostages, where they took them in for medical treatment and then handed them over to the Israeli officials, who have now brought them into Israel. But the other side of this, of course, is what has happened here in the West Bank, where we know that 39 women and children have been released, and those Palestinians have gathered in the West Bank waiting for them to...
All right. So here's my thing. Maybe some of you will think this sounds stupid, but hear me out, folks. When I look at this situation, I really wonder, you know, if you're one of these prisoners that Israel released, is this really a good thing for you? Now, don't get me wrong. When Hamas releases these hostages, the people from Thailand are going to go back to Thailand. The Israelis will go back to Israel, and they'll be somewhat safe. But these Palestinian prisoners that are being released into Gaza, you're being released into a hellhole. Like, I don't know how the jail situation is for these people. Maybe it's terrible. Maybe it's not that bad. I don't know. But it's got to be better than death. And if I was one of these prisoners, I would be like, oh, maybe you can hold on to me for a little while longer. Release me a little bit later. Because the way I see it, and I know, like, the people in Gaza and the Palestinians, they're celebrating that these people are being released. But the way I see it is, you're releasing these people into the middle of a war zone. You're literally releasing these prisoners into rubble. And now they're very likely to not make it past next week. You know what I mean? it's just weird. It's kind of weird to me because when I look at it, I'm like, were you better off in jail in Israel or on the streets in Gaza right now? It's not like these prisoners are being released into a good, stable situation. They're being released into straight rubble. All out war, all out chaos, bombs, rockets, you name it. So if I was one of these Palestinian prisoners and I didn't have a life sentence or something like that, I may be like, hey, I know that you want to release me, but can you hold on to me for another 6 months, something like that? Now, as far as the ceasefire goes, I do find this interesting. Israel has been adamantly saying that after these few days are over, it's over. We're going back to war. We're going back on the offensive. Nothing's going to change our mind. That's what Israel has been saying. But now would be a better time than ever to try to cool down this fire, right? If Hamas plays their cards right, if they don't spark off any violence, if they're able to stretch this ceasefire by releasing more hostages, I do see a small window where this entire situation can be defused just a little bit. Now, Israel is saying that there's no chance. But I gotta think that a ceasefire is kind of nice for a few days, right? When you've been bulldozing, bombing, and straight running through an entire, the entirety of Gaza, I would think that a few days of not fighting might be nice. And I know Israel is saying that there's no way this is the end, that everything is going to, go back to how it was. They're going to start fighting again in a few days. But I do think there's a small possibility that something good can come of this. But it all depends on how both sides operate. And from the look of things, neither side really wants to cooperate. It looks like both sides just want to keep fighting. And that's my frustration with this whole situation overall. I really hate that the entire world has been dragged into this beef, because we shouldn't be dragged into this nonsense. Because at the end of the day, they're never going to stop fighting. They're never going to stop hating each other. And I don't think other people from around the world should start fighting and hating each other because of what's going on over there. But I'll continue to watch the situation. You let me know what you think down in the comments below. If you're feeling generous and you would like to support the channel, you could do so via Super Thanks. Or you can support the channel for free by hitting that like button, sharing this video, subscribing, ringing that notification bell. And as always, I'll talk to you all soon in the next video.